Hello, this is a video about what people are calling the Mandela effect, and they think it's a strange thing to be happening. I think it's a lot more scary than what people are saying and suggesting, even though it's scary for people who are affected by it, and which I am one. This, uh, this is the Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci, which was commissioned by the Church, the Pope, the Vatican, to be an accurate rendition of the Last Supper. And there's three main points in the Last Supper. That's Jesus and the 12 disciples, the bread, and the wine. And in that portrait, there was a Holy Grail, which was a which was a goblet that held Jesus' blood. We'll get to that in a second. But I read a book in my teens, early 20s, 30 years ago, which broke this picture down. Leonardo da Vinci's portrait of the Last Supper broke down everything in it, or lots of things in it anyway. And part of it was talking about the Holy Grail, the goblet that, or the chalice that was on the table, but it's not there anymore. I can't remember the name of the book. Hopefully, I will eventually, but we'll just carry on and have a think. Now, the Holy Grail, which is obviously very famous, is most commonly identified as the cup that held Jesus' blood at the Last Supper. And if this is an accurate depiction of the Last Supper, where is that? Now, in the book, before I start, in the book, if we follow the mouse, part of it was suggesting that this V shape was the Holy Grail, and it represented the the female genitalia, if there's any children watching. Okay, but it also spoke about the goblet here, which the goblet here was not the Holy Grail, even though the goblet that held Jesus' blood was or is considered the Holy Grail. The actual Holy Grail was represented by this here, this V shape. Uh, well, let's have a look. In Luke 20:19, and he took bread and gave thanks and brake it, that should be broke, and gave it unto them, saying, This is my body, which is given for you. This do in remembrance of me. And then the following verse, likewise also the cup after supper, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood, which is shed for you. Now, Jesus didn't drink the wine or his blood. He was going to wait until everything was sorted and he had sacrificed his life and ended up in heaven. Uh, but it was to be shared between all his disciples along with the bread. But that's, and so remember, the cup, the Holy Grail, the cup that Jesus' blood, that held Jesus' blood in the Last Supper, but it's not here. Now, I might have forgotten, and everybody who remembers it might have forgotten that it was actually there or misinterpreted it. But I and my wife, my mum and my wife's mum, had a picture of this Leonardo da Vinci's Holy Grail on the wall in the house for years and years and years. And it always had that chalice, the Holy Grail, on the table. But maybe I'm just misremembering it, as people are liking to say. But if this is accurate depiction, why is it not there? Maybe at the time the church didn't think it was important enough to be there or shouldn't be there. Let's have a look at some other images. This is from the movie, or this is a cartoon of the movie The Holy Grail by Monty Python. Maybe a frivolous place to start, but it's depicting apparently Jesus or the knight in the centre, and then the disciples sitting round the table, and lo and behold, with the Holy Grail is that chalice that was sitting on the table. Maybe you think, oh well, the Holy Grail, it's comedy, it's Monty Python, but when they were making jokes, they were making jokes about the actual things that was happening. They were fairly accurate. And when we get to the end, there's another comedy, which led me to some other things in this, but we'll get there. So here is a more religious, so to speak, depiction. And what's right in front of Jesus? The Holy Grail, a chalice holding the blood or the wine. And then we can go again, and this is similar with a big chalice in front of Jesus. And if you have a look at these, we'll also see some bread at the tables. Because the important thing in the Last Supper was Jesus' disciples, bread, and the wine, and the Holy Grail. And here's another one. We have a look on the table in front of Jesus, there's the Holy Grail. And this one, obviously there's the Holy Grail. And on the left hand side, on Jesus' right, there's bread. And here we have it again. And these are harder to see, but we'll get to more clear ones. I can see it because I've zoomed in. But he's holding the chalice, the Holy Grail. And here we have it again. This time it's represented as a cup, but it's still the Holy Grail. And we see everybody's got bread and they've got cups to share in this wine, or as it says in Luke 22:20, this cup is a New Testament in my blood, which I shed for you. And here we have another one. There's a Holy Grail. And here we have a carving in just behind Jesus' hand, the Holy Grail, or the chalice, the cup that held the blood. It's so important. And here we have it again. The Holy Grail, the cup that held Jesus' blood. And here we have it again. And if we look down to the left, yeah, it's following my mouse, there's emphasizing that the grail, the cup, the chalice, is so important. And here we have again the Holy Grail. And here we have another one where Jesus' hand is on the Holy Grail and he's also holding a piece of bread. That's the three main parts of the Last Supper. Some people may say, oh, well, it's Judas Iscariot uh, who betrayed him, but Jesus didn't betray him at the Last Supper. Jesus just said that Judas will betray him. So it didn't happen at the Last Supper. The betrayal didn't happen at the Last Supper. Here we have it again, the Holy Grail. And if we have a look at the table, we can see some bread. And here we have it again. These are all. And guess what? Here we have it again. And Jesus is holding some bread in his left hand. And here we have it again. And the next one is kind of similar, but it's a total different picture. There's Jesus holding the bread and the Holy Grail. And here we have again the Holy Grail, the chalice, one of the three most important things, if not the most important thing. And here we have it again. This is similar to the one, or the cup is depicted in a similar style as the previous, or one of the previous photos with Jesus with his hand on top of it. And again, he's holding some bread. And here we have it again. And notice bread. And we have it again, Jesus holding the bread and the Holy Grail. This is the Last Supper. This cup is the New Testament. And here we have it again. And here we have it again, another chalice. And on the table is bread. And again, we've got bread, Jesus' disciples, the bread, and the Holy Grail, or the chalice that held Jesus' blood. And here we have it again. And guess what? We have it again, and we have it again. And Jesus again is holding the bread. And here you can see that the red wine is, or the wine in the cup, is red because it's so important. And here we have it again and again. And Jesus again holding the bread. And this is a mosaic. And the others were pictures and paintings. But let's have a look. Here we have it again. There's always a cup and some bread. Jesus and the disciples. And here we have him. He's holding the chalice. And this cup is the New Testament in my blood, which is shed for you. And here we have it again. And Jesus holding the bread. And again. And then I think I'm going to say it again so many times here. And here we have it again. It's just so important. On the Last Supper, there's Jesus, disciples, bread, and the chalice that held his blood. It's so important. And here we have it again. I'm sorry if that's a duplicate photo. I tried to eliminate all duplicates, but that looks like one I've seen before. But never mind, it's still there. And here we have it again. It's always there. And again. And now it's stained glass windows. Because the chalice, the Holy Grail, is so important when it comes to the Last Supper. And again, this is another mosaic. And the chalice is there. And again, on a stained glass window, there's bread, Jesus, disciples, the chalice, and the Holy Grail. And then we have it again, Jesus holding the bread above the Holy Grail, or the chalice. And another stained glass window. And we have it again. And even though this is broken, we can see the bread, or it's split due to copyright, but we're not using it for those purposes. We've got the chalice again with the bread, Jesus' disciples. And again, Jesus holding the bread above the Holy Grail. It is so important. There's no one who could read about the Last Supper and not know how important that goblet, that chalice, that cup was. And here we have it again. See the important things with Jesus, the disciples, bread, and that cup. This cup is a New Testament in my blood. It's so important. That's why you go to church, chapel, or wherever, and you're given red wine and bread. Bread represents the body, and the red wine represents the wine in that chalice, the Holy Grail, which represented Jesus' blood. And here we have it again. stained glass windows, people who knew the Bible, and again and again, and on this, what was that? That'd be carving or brass plaque, I think. Again, we've got the chalice, the Holy Grail, and the bread, Jesus and the disciples. And if we go back, if we have a look here, this is Thomas, I believe, but the face is Leonardo da Vinci. And Leonardo da Vinci wasn't a religious person or didn't agree, didn't follow Christianity. And this finger is an insult. I'll cover that and again later on. And if you have a look at this man here, if you look at his eyes, where they're looking, look at his arms. We'll get onto that in just a little while. But look at his arms and look where he's looking. And this finger of Thomas, this disciple is James, James the Greater, or James the master. There's another James called James the Lesser or Minor or something. But James is my namesake, so I'm aware of that. This, you can see this has come from the Leonardo da Vinci's painting because of this finger. But in here there is a Holy Grail, there is a chalice and bread. And here on the cartoons, even in cartoons, we have bread and the Holy Grail just in front of Jesus. And even when it's less detailed, we have Jesus with the Holy Grail and the bread on and the plate at the table. And then even in cartoons, we have the cartoon character representing Jesus reaching for the Holy Grail. And the bread is represented by pizza here. And they put some fish and some burgers. But the important thing is it's representing the Holy Grail. And here we have it again. This is probably a wooden beaker, which is a Holy Grail. And here in the cartoon, guys, let's take this from top. Who ordered the chicken nuggets? Because we're just having bread, represented by hamburgers and Jesus in the middle, and the Holy Grail, represented by a disposable juice container. And here we have a children's cartoon from a Bible book, I think. Take it and eat it. This is my body. And then Holy Grail. And here we have Leonardo da Vinci's drawing. Remember the plaque with Leonardo da Vinci's finger. So we know that that bronze plaque was rendered from this Leonardo da Vinci's depiction of it. But there's no Holy Grail. And we'll get to James in a minute. But like I said, I read a book in my teens, early 20s. And that's why I know this is Leonardo da Vinci put his own image into this. And this finger is an insult. So he's looking at Jesus and insulting him, which is a bad thing. Huh? But in the book, it broke this picture down and pointed out a lot of things. This here is John, my brother's name, and it's possibly represents Mary Magdalene, which eliminates one of the disciples, John, because of the feminine look. And if we have a look over here, this is a knife. I've got a zoom up picture of this later. This is really important where we've got this knife here. Because when I first, or not when I first looked at this picture, but I thought that knife belonged to Judas Iscariot, as saying, I'm going to betray Jesus because I've got this knife. But apparently it's not. But I am aware of lots of things in this painting and the Holy Grail. And like I said, the book I read discussed all of this, and it discussed the chalice in front of Jesus. And it also said that this V shape here, where Jesus and John, or Jesus and Mary Magdalene, are separated, this is representing the true Holy Grail and not the chalice or the cup on the table. Now, let's have a little bit. You see, I was thinking about this last night, and I thought of a Mel Brooks movie called History of the World Part 1, which I watched many years ago, and I've watched a few times since. And in there was a scene of the Last Supper. And if we remember, if we go back to, if we think about the bronze plaque where that was taken from this, obviously because of this finger and Leonardo da Vinci's image, and remember where this guy was looking. This guy is now looking where? Down here, looking at maybe the chalice, but he shouldn't be because he never was. He wasn't before. And look at his hands. It's like, or it's as if he's just seen a magic trick and he's stunned. He's stepping back in awe, looking at, where is that gone? That's how it looks to me now, but he never was because he wasn't looking down here. But here we go, let's look at him. There's Leonardo Da Vinci, or his image, insulting Jesus there, and look at it. Look at the surprise, and he's, oh, there, just get back. Look at the surprise, and where's he looking? He's looking down here. Is he looking at this side? Is he looking at that side? It's difficult to see. I think he's looking over here. And he's standing back, looking in awe, as if a magic trick has just been performed in front of him, and that chalice is gone. But, and as I said, I looked at, this is the Mel Brooks movie, and it's a signed copy by Mel Brooks of this scene. The important thing here, this is a comedy movie, and Mel Brooks has wanted to get this as accurate as possible. So if you look at all the disciples starting on the right, look at their hands. He's tried to get it as accurate as possible. This guy, look at his hand. That's a weird place to look to put your hand, a weird shape to put your hand in. Here we've got this young man looking down here, and his hands are the same. This guy, and they're looking in the correct direction, But when you come to James here in the green, James's focus is now not down at the table. Where would you say he's looking? James on the second picture? Probably down here. And where is he looking? Nowhere near this way. And we've got, see, and over here is a knife. This is how accurate, and it has to be accurate for Mel Brooks to do. He has to copy every little detail to make sure it's as funny as possible. And his hand is on his shoulder. He's holding up these two hands. He's leaning on the table. Judas Iscariot is leaning back. And I think this is Thomas holding the knife here. And John or Mary Magdalene is leaning over to the left. We've even got three windows in the back, and we've got the, I don't know what you call them, helmets, maybe banners hanging down, and it's all as accurate as possible. But James here is not looking surprised as if he's seen a magic trick looking down here, but here he is. His hands are open slightly in a different way, and his eyes are gazing down where the Holy Grail used to be, but now it's gone. And when I looked at this, I also thought, where is the New Testament in this Leonardo da Vinci's painting? Because it's Jesus, the disciples, there's bread, but there's no wine anywhere. No one has wine. But in Mel Brooks's depiction, or um, ridiculing, or maybe not ridiculing, but attempting to reproduce this, which has to be accurate to make it funny. Jesus is holding his wine there. There's a wine decanter, and everybody has some wine because all the disciples are sharing in Jesus' blood. But there's no blood. The New Testament is gone from this image. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like and subscribe. That hopefully help boost some ratings and get more people to see it. And share the link with people you know. Comment down below. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be doing some more videos. And the next one will be on the Bible changes, which is even scarier. Which, because of how scary that is, led me to do this video. Okay, thank you again, and have a nice day.